Pete Buttigieg and his allies are super salty about the fact that he has been criticized pretty aggressively, both by the conservative media and also by actual journalists like David Sirota, who has been following his lack of regulations for the rail industry and his lack of concern for days after the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. Now, Buttigieg, who is the Secretary of the Department of Transportation, will have you believe that he's been concerned from day one, but his actions seem to prove otherwise. And so Politico writes this lengthy piece that's full of all sorts of excuses by allies to Pete Buttigieg. So let's get into the details here. So on Wednesday, Buttigieg's allies were complaining that he's taking an unfair pounding, weird choice of words, but nonetheless, over the disaster, all because of his perceived ambitions as a one-time and future presidential hopeful. No, that's not because that's not the reason why he's being criticized. Go ahead, Cenk.
Yeah, so it's funny for people in Washington, the folks who are actually affected by this in East Palestine, Ohio, are such an afterthought. This has instantly become political football.
1000%.
Who's up, who's down? How is it affecting poor Pete Buttigieg, who's taking a pounding over this? No, the residents are taking a pounding. Pete Buttigieg has done nothing, and hence he is a tiny bit politically hurt by it because of his own inaction. He's not the one that's the victim here. It's amazing the way that they frame it. And they say, and why? Is it because he actually didn't push for any safety regulations? No, it's because of his perceived ambitions to run for president. That's why he's being unfairly attacked from all these different sides, but especially the right wing are making this. Guys, we tell you 1,000 times when the right wing's making stuff up, right? And they do it all the time. And in this case, their angle onto this story is wrong. But Buttigieg actually didn't do anything, and this accident wasn't because he might run for president. It's a thing that actually happened in the real world.
Buttigieg has been transportation secretary for 2 years. He admitted himself during an interview on Yahoo News that the derailment in East Palestine is one of 1,000 train derailments every year. You have been the transportation secretary for 2 years. If you know that these train derailments are as common as they are, who exactly was he expecting to regulate them? Who exactly was he expecting to take ownership and leadership of this position? And the fact of the matter is, Pete Buttigieg thought, great, I got nominated for transportation secretary, I'm confirmed, perfect, it's gonna be smooth sailing from here. And then I'll run for president in the near future and everything will be great. Except it's a real job, believe it or not. It's a real job. And yes, Republicans, the Trump administration further deregulated the rail industry. We've been covering that extensively. But who is in charge right now? And this is what we see with Democrats all over the place. In California, for instance, we have tens of thousands of people suffering from severe mental illness all over our streets, okay? Literally dying on our streets. And California, which is a blue state, completely dominated by Democrats, you know what they say? Oh, it's all Reagan's fault. It's all Reagan's fault. He closed down all the mental asylums, it's all Reagan's fault. Who's been in charge for decades in California? Has it been Reagan?
Yeah.
Has it been Reagan? Do you guys get what I'm saying here? I'm just so sick of Democrats like thinking that any criticism toward them is like just part of an orchestrated right-wing attack, and it has nothing to do with the substance of the critique. I mean, it's insane.
Well, it's actually a tactic that the Democrats use. So they're using it in this case, and in this political article too, which is, they did it, right? Okay, all right, Reagan did defund those hospitals. And in today, White House press secretary is saying, Elaine Chao was Elaine Chao who wouldn't regulate for all that time under Trump. But okay, that's also true, but Buttigieg didn't fix it.
2 years.
But guys, it's not like he ran out of time. He's never tried, not once in 2 years. So he's doing the same exact thing as Elaine Chao, but it's political football. So it's Chao, it's Buttigieg. No, it's both of them. Their parties take corporate money, stuff it into their pockets, and then don't regulate them. So for cost-cutting reasons. But the reporters drive me nuts. They just turn it instantly into, is Chao up, is Buttigieg down? Who's up, who's down, right? Focus. Who cares what the Republicans and Democrats said? What's the actual problem? It's not that Buttigieg didn't show up in time or he showed up too early or too late. It's that he didn't do his goddamn job, and neither did Elaine Chao. And Anna, one more thing, it's actually worse than him just sitting there thinking, oh, I'm a cabinet secretary, I'll run for president later. Remember, they were supposed to, they did pass an infrastructure bill. So he thought he was gonna take the credit for the infrastructure bill and raise tons of money from the transportation industry when he runs for president. Now he's like, God damn it, I gotta do the job. As you're gonna see in this, in more devastating quotes here, he really has no interest in the job whatsoever.
It's incredibly frustrating. Okay, so with that said, one other comment from a senior Democrat who demanded to be anonymous for this piece. Pete Buttigieg has taken a lot of bullets for this president on this. No, he has taken a lot of bullets because he has failed to do his job. He has been the head of the transportation department for 2 years. He knows about the derailments. He knows that there are thousands of them every year, and he chose not to regulate them.
He's saying a bullet for Biden. Wait, are you implying that it was Biden's fault and Biden didn't want to regulate the trains? And Buttigieg, oh my God, he wanted to get in there and regulate. But you know what? Biden wouldn't let him, so he's taking a bullet for Biden. So now you're throwing Biden under the bus in a wild attempt to, it wasn't me, it wasn't me, it wasn't me, it was everyone but me.
All right, so 3 people in Buttigieg's orbit admit being exasperated by the furor, saying that nobody asked him about the derailment in any of the 23 media interviews he conducted during the first 10 days after the accident. Now he's getting criticism because, I mean, the first point that people were making was, it's been like over a week now, how come the transportation secretary hasn't addressed this? And then when he finally had a public appearance, that would have been perfect for him to address it, or at least show some concern for the people in East Palestine, he decided to talk about something that made absolutely no sense. We'll get to that in just a second. But according to Politico, Buttigieg was prepared to speak about the incident if asked, according to a DOT official. But for 10 days, no interviewer asked him. Does he need to be prompted to say something about what happened in East Palestine? Really? He needs to be prompted, Cenk.
Yeah, and of course the reason why he says that is because he's saying, well, look, my job is all about marketing. I'm not here to actually do any governing or to protect you guys. And since the media didn't ask me about something that might be damaging to our brand, the only thing that I care about, of course I didn't answer any of those questions. I didn't care about that crash. I haven't cared about the 999 other crashes. And by the way, neither did Chao and neither did the administration before that. So from his point of view, he's like, I didn't think I should comment on an issue unless the media made it an issue, in which case it could hurt my political ambitions and the president's political ambitions. And that's the only way that it would be relevant to him. He's telling on himself without realizing he's telling on himself.
Exactly. So with that said, then on February 13th, we started to see a large uptick in mentions on the secretary's social media accounts, particularly on Twitter, said a spokesperson speaking on condition of anonymity to describe behind the scenes events. That afternoon, we began to see stories on television and get inquiries about the Department of Transportation and Secretary's role in this derailment. Now, the reason why there was a lot of attention toward his Twitter account 10 days later is because 10 days after the derailment, he attended the National Association of Counties conference. And during that conference, he had some strong thoughts about what should be done in the construction field. Why don't we take a look at that?
I would urge you, especially because often this is more in your hands than mine, to really work with organized labor, to work with your contractors, to work with your community colleges on building a workforce that reflects the community. That's right. We have heard way too many stories from generations past of infrastructure where you got a neighborhood, often a neighborhood of color, that finally sees the project come to them, but everyone in the hard hats on that project looking like, doing the good paying jobs, don't look like they came from anywhere near the neighborhood.
Yeah, except he just completely made that up, right? So just a lot of happy talk, a lot of pandering, which Democrats, mainstream corporate Democrats love to do, pandering to issues pertaining to diversity, even when what he's specifically talking about has nothing to do with diversity. Construction jobs are actually pretty freaking diverse. Like if you look at the statistics, 51.9% white, 29% Latino or Hispanic, 10.8% or almost 11% Black or African American. He just made it up. He just made it up because it's not, he's just coasting. He's just coasting. And he is shocked that anyone would be frustrated by the lack of leadership coming from the Department of Transportation under his watch.
So the 10 days comment's really interesting because actually there was at least one organization, news organization covering this very extensively before then. It was The Lever, which is a progressive news outlet run by David Sirota. And we had him on here to talk about it as well. But mainstream media was like discounted it because they thought, oh, Sirota's a progressive, so this must have to do with Pete Buttigieg versus a progressive 5 years from now in a theoretical primary. So even though Sirota's reporting is perfect and exactly right, we're gonna ignore it. Then 10 days after the accident, the right-wing media picked up Sirota's reporting and they're like, ooh, we could use this for our own purposes.
And they did.
And once right-wing media picked it up, then all of a sudden mainstream media was like, oh, okay, left-wing media is totally irrelevant and they have all the facts, so we're gonna ignore them. But right-wing media is talking about it. Well, now this is a national issue, okay? So then Buttigieg, who knows all about it, that's why he gave that quote about, this is about his presidential ambitions and people from all sides are attacking him. That's a veiled reference to progressives, right? Ignores it when a progressive asks him, but when Fox News asks, he jumps to attention, wait, this could affect my political career. Because the mainstream media cares about right-wing media.
Because right-wing media has power, right? Progressive media, we're building power, but we're not at the same extent as right-wing media. We don't have the resources, we don't have billionaire donors that give us tens of millions of dollars to run our operation.
Yeah, and we don't have mainstream media amplifying our issues and our facts. Whereas as soon as right-wing media says something, mainstream media has it reverberate throughout the country. And hence then they use this. The Buttigieg fans in the administration, they say these are bad faith attacks from Republicans. And when they say that, that's catnip for Democratic voters. They go, oh, this must be a Republican attack on poor Pete Buttigieg. Instead of saying, hey, Buttigieg, you're supposed to represent us and do regulations that Democratic voters want, they then turn around and support Buttigieg against Fox News and Republicans, just like the administration wanted. And meanwhile, you forgot that he's supposed to do regulations and he hasn't.
And guys, like, please spare me, like anyone who's upset at the reality that 95% of politics happens to be optics. I'm sorry, it's just the reality of the situation. So when they start calling on Pete Buttigieg to visit East Palestine, just do the decent thing and visit East Palestine and don't look for ridiculous excuses for why you couldn't do it. So yesterday, Donald Trump visited East Palestine. We know the truth about Donald Trump. We know that he deregulated the rail industry. As I said earlier, we've been covering that extensively. But do the people of East Palestine know it? I mean, probably not. And so when they see Trump show up and pass out water bottles, when they see Trump at the local McDonald's ordering meals for the local fire department and the police officials there, they think, oh wow, Trump actually wants to do something to help us, and Pete Buttigieg hasn't even been here yet. And then when Pete Buttigieg is confronted by reporters, in this case, yes, from the conservative outlet, the Daily Caller, he doesn't handle it well. So this was from yesterday. Let's take a look at that interaction.
What do you have to say to the folks in Ohio, East Palestine, who are suffering right now?
Well, I'd refer you to about a dozen interviews I've given today, and if you'd like to arrange a conversation, make sure to reach out to our press office, but I'm have that conversation with you. Just walk
You don't
down the
have a
street
message
here.
for them?
I do, and I shared it with the press many times today. I'd refer you to those comments.
Would you mind sharing it with us?
No, I'm going to refer you to the comments that I made to the press because right now I'm taking some personal time and I'm walking down the street.
Are you going down there?
What's that?
Are you going down there at all?
Yeah, I am.
When are you going?
I'll share that when I'm ready.
Okay,
I'll talk down the
thank you.
street. Can I get a photo of you?
Yeah.
I don't know why I wanted a photo with her. That was super weird. But nonetheless, I mean, it's just, I feel like there's been one mistake after another. They keep compounding it rather than just taking ownership. Stop looking for excuses and stop trying to pass the blame onto someone else. The other thing that really stood out to me in this Politico piece was that they were trying to throw the EPA administrator, Michael Reagan, under the bus, right? who, look, I don't know anything about the guy. I don't really care for him one way or the other. But nonetheless, again, trying to pass the blame onto someone else, even someone within the administration, right? In order to kind of provide cover for Pete Buttigieg is insane. It's so transparent.
In fact, I'm gonna read you graphic 9 because it's amazing. They say a senior Democrat said, by the way, the senior Democrat could literally be Buttigieg himself. I mean, the headline of the article even mentions Buttigieg world basically fighting back against these things. It's Buttigieg, okay? And if it's not Buttigieg, it's his top staffer with him overlooking the phone call. Anyway, that senior Democrat says, quote, "There's a plume and there's a chemical spill. If anyone should have been there right away, it's Regan. But he's not a political target. And so what's happened here is they've picked a political target and they're just beating the drum as often as they can despite facts." So that's him, Buttigieg, throwing another cabinet official under the bus.
Yeah.
Saying, I'm taking bullets for Biden, and it should have been Regan. He should be the one that's blamed. And yesterday we showed you the National Transportation Safety Board. I mean, it's really their job to do the safety, right?
Yeah, that's
and Congress should be doing, and the company should be doing. How everyone but Pete Buttigieg should be doing their job. He's the only one that shouldn't be doing his job. Hey, Pete, instead of blaming everyone for 20 days straight, or actually 10 days straight, ignoring it for 10 days and then blaming everyone else, why don't you actually just push for safety regulations right now?
So finally, let's get to that, because I want to address that. Because even after all of this, even after all the criticism, all the demands for regulation, the rail workers looked at what Pete Buttigieg is doing in response in terms of regulation. They're like, what is this? Doesn't seem like he's really serious about this. So why don't we actually listen to the rail workers, okay? Since everyone's so concerned about, what's your political identity? And we'll trust your critique whether or not you're on the right side. Now let's put all aside for a second. The rail workers, the individuals who are experts on whether or not what Pete Buttigieg is proposing in terms of regulation is enough, okay? As currently written, the proposed rule could allow for numerous instances of single crew operations in the coming years, Railroad Workers United tweeted. The alliance also shared a letter it had sent to the US Department of Transportation last September, accusing the Federal Railroad Administration of attempting to placate unions, community groups, and the general public on the one hand with a two-person train crew rule, while on the other hand signaling a green light to the industry to run trains with a single crew member. So that was one of the deregulations that the rail workers had been concerned about, had been voicing their concerns about for a while, and had been ignored, right? And so they're like, we even contacted the Department of Transportation last September about this, and Pete Buttigieg is addressing it now. But even as it's being addressed by the federal government, they're trying to play both sides, which they're frustrated by.
If he actually wanted to do something and protect American citizens, it's actually not that hard. Right now, what you would do is, about 4 regulations that would make a big difference. The one Anna mentioned is one of them. Modern brakes in the trains is another. Rules on how you carry hazardous chemicals is another. So these are obvious and clear, and almost all of them directly related to this accident. You could just come out and do a press conference. You and Biden could go together and go, I want these regulations passed. Republicans who are complaining, vote for this bill.
That's right. Why don't we do that? Why don't we do
Trump, and he mentioned Trump, Buttigieg today, but all the rest of you and all the Republican senators and Mitch McConnell and all your dear friends, Joe Biden, and by the way, your Democratic colleagues who are also corrupt and don't want to vote for it, I'm putting you on the line right now. Show me if you're gonna vote for these regulations or you're gonna betray the people of East Palestine, Ohio.
That would have been a far better way of responding to the criticism, right? Instead of trying to pass the buck, instead of trying to find cover or excuses, what would Republicans do in that situation, right? They would do that strategy is exactly what they would do, right? They would do the press conferences, they would do the media tours, and they would incessantly discuss the fact that the rail industry was further deregulated by the Trump administration. And they would call for the specific lawmakers, people like Ted Cruz saying that, can you believe what's happening? I can't believe it. Call them out by name during the press conference and say, we want legislation right now. Go ahead. And once they vote against it, because we know the Republicans will vote against it because they're in the pocket of the rail companies as well, then you do another press conference and you call them out by name. Instead, I mean, it's just embarrassing, guys. Anyone who provides cover for this nonsense, for this clownishness, like blows my mind. I don't get it.
So last thing, if you're wondering, well, why don't they do that? Really, there's not a single Democratic consultant or anyone in the administration that's got 2 brain cells that they could do that tactic you guys just said. You guys are a bunch of just a random talk show host, and you guys came up with something that makes perfect sense, right? Well, there's a reason why they don't do it. Because if you call out the Republicans on that, they're just gonna turn around and go, hey, Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, you guys have the same exact donors. And by the way, you haven't passed any safety regulations. Not only you haven't passed them, you haven't even proposed them. That's why they don't do it, because they're just as corrupt. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.